But the mainstream media was afraid to tell you about the news this week. This week, while the mainstream media obsessed over President Trump tweeting about little Adam Schiff, here are the things that happened that really matter. While Greta Thunberg and the Democrats targeted the United States and Western nations, blaming us for climate change that they claim will end the world in 12 years, meanwhile, China is the biggest polluter of all. In fact, China produces more CO2 emissions than the United States and the European Union combined. The Asia-Pacific region accounts for 50% of the world's carbon emissions, and the Asian countries in general are responsible for the vast majority of all plastics in the ocean. 95% of plastic in the oceans comes from Asia. But did the mainstream media report this to you? No. The mainstream media held up Greta Thunberg as a child god, even as she peddled nonsense that was not true. According to a Monmouth poll from August 22nd of 2019, only 35% of registered voters support impeachment of President Trump, while a whopping 61% of registered voters oppose impeachment. Now, Speaker Pelosi's declaration of a formal inquiry is meaningless anyway, because it doesn't call for a vote on the House floor. But did the mainstream media report the truth about voter sentiments? No. The mainstream media likes to pretend that even Republicans want to impeach the president. Well, sorry, the polls show that politically biased narrative is a lie. The Washington Post and Democratic chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, Adam Schiff, told us that there would be a quid pro quo in the transcript of the phone call between President Trump and Ukrainian President Zelensky. But we saw the transcript with our own eyes, and there was no quid pro quo. In fact, the whistleblower's complaint was entirely secondhand or even third-hand information, also known as rumors, and it was faulty in multiple places. In addition, the Intelligence Community Inspector General found that the whistleblower was politically biased against President Trump. But did the mainstream media report on that? Absolutely not. The mainstream media peddled egregious lies instead, hoping to make the president look bad, even though their reports were not true. A staffer for 2020 Democratic presidential candidate Pete Buttigieg has a history of praising radical hate preacher and anti-Semite Louis Farrakhan. Devin Anderson from South Carolina has tweeted repeatedly about attending Farrakhan's speeches, including a speech in which Farrakhan bashed Jews and gay people. But did the mainstream media report on this? Oh no, they did not, because the mainstream media is in the pocket of the left, and the left wants you to think Buttigieg is moderate and normal. According to the watchdog group China Tribunal, the communist regime in China is murdering and harvesting the organs of Uyghur Muslims because they're Muslim. In fact, the allegations from the China Tribunal claim that China is sometimes harvesting the organs while the victims are still alive. And yet, did the mainstream media report on this? Just barely. While the mainstream media obsessed over child activist Greta Thunberg's complaint to the UN that countries who aren't stopping climate change are violating her human rights, these same people said nothing about this gross human rights abuse at the hands of communist China. The mainstream media doesn't care to report any of that to you, so we will. And that's my final point.